Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing another card which features the brand new Essentials Postage Edge dies from Pinkfresh Studio. I love these dies and I wanted to show you how you can use them to make custom size postage stamps. So this is a look at the die set, and if you missed yesterday's video, I used these in yesterday's video as well. I'm going to use the third largest or the third from the largest. I'm not real sure, but it's number 3 in the set because I want to frame out this stamp set, which is the You're the Best stamp set. Now, in order to create a custom size of this postage edge rectangle, we're actually going to do some partial die cutting. So you can see that I've laid my die onto my white cardstock, and now I'm covering up just the top part of this die. So the part where my two plates are overlapping, so this upper part of the die, that's going to be the part that cuts, but anything below that line will not cut. So once I run that through my Anna Griffin Empress machine, you'll see I have a partial shape. Now I'm going to take this die and I'm going to move it up so that I can cut the bottom edge. So when I move this up, I'm going to make sure that the sides of the die line align with the edges that I've already cut along the side. And you can kind of feel it kind of nestle into those previously cut lines. And this allows me to either make this die cut longer or shorter, depending on what I'm looking for. So once I have that kind of nestled into the sides where it's already cut, I'm going to use my cutting pad to cover just the bottom part of the die. Now I could cover this whole thing and we would cut like a couple of odd shapes, but I wanted to show you how to create just this perfectly square postage edge rectangle. Now the reason that I don't do it by cutting the entire shape and then moving the die up and cutting out of that is because the corners kind of get a little messed up when you do that. So in order to maintain the corners as they were intended, I cut the top part first, readjust my die, and then cut the bottom part. Now I'm showing you this process again. I'm actually going to die cut 3 of these, but I'm starting by cutting the upper part of that die by just partially covering the die with my cutting pad. And then I will readjust the die and cut the bottom part of the die by covering it with my cutting plate or my cutting pad. This time I'm using one of the Anna Griffin Empress mini plates because sometimes those smaller plates are a little easier to kind of wield. So you can see I have 2 perfectly square little postage stamp shapes here, and I created a third in the same way. Now I'm going to take some mint tape. This is from scrapbook.com, and I'm going to use it to mask off the edges. These postage shapes kind of have like a little dotted edge along the inside of that postage edge. And so I'm just lining up this mint tape with that dotted edge to create a white border around all of these because I'm going to do a little ink blending on each of these postage shapes. Now, if you watched yesterday's video, I did something similar and I showed you how you can use basic masking to kind of create the illusion of layers. And once again, I'm just doing this here to kind of give it that true postage feel because I feel like postage stamps always have the white edge on them. So once I get all of this mint tape lined up on my first shape, then I'm going to take my large, fluffy 1-inch blending brushes from Pinkfresh Studio, and I'm going to blend some color onto each of these shapes. I'm starting out with Peony. This is a really beautiful, kind of brighter pink color. It's a little bit brighter than what I usually use, and I was trying to bring in some colors that I don't always use. Now, the other thing I want to mention that's kind of a little different about this card project is I am creating a 5x7 card project for today's card. I thought it was a great fit for these larger shapes, and since I wanted to use all 3 of them on one card, it fit, you know? So once I have my ink blended onto that first shape, then I can go ahead and remove the masking, and you'll see how I preserve that nice white border on my postage shape. I was going to try to keep all of this tape in place, like connected, and then place it onto the next postage shape, but that did not work out. So I'm just removing it one by one. Now I'm going to reuse all of this masking tape that I've used to mask off the additional 2 shapes, and this time I'm using Candy Violet and I'm blending it onto my postage shape. Now, as I'm blending the ink on, I did try to kind of allow there to be a highlight or a lighter portion in the center and add the bulk of my color around the edges of these shapes, but you could create a nice solid background if you want. Remember, these are really going to be the landing place for the stamped images that I'm going to create here in just a moment. And this is really the main part of the color on the card. So I wanted to just kind of do something a little different by kind of creating that highlight towards the center. And you can really see it on this candy violet one here. Now, once the second one is ink blended, I'm going to again remove all that masking tape and I'll reuse it for my third shape. And that third shape, I am going to blend with the color Atlantis. This is a really beautiful color. It is kind of a green, blue, or like a deep, deep dark teal. And depending on the intensity with which you blend it, it can, kind of take on some different feels. So I'll just once again use the same technique, concentrating the bulk of my color around the outer edge of this shape and allowing there to be kind of a highlight towards the center. Now, something I wanted to point out is that this partial die cutting technique to create, custom sized die cuts can really be used with a lot of different basic shape dies that you may already have in your stash. Banners and borders and rectangles and circles, they can all be used and kind of partially die cut to create either different sizes or different shapes. So be sure to check out what you have in your stash, but I thought this postage edge was the perfect way to kind of show off this technique today. Now for my sentiments, I am using this beautiful floral set from Pinkfresh Studio. And I'm going to be doing some white heat embossing onto vellum. So I have my vellum placed in my Misty stamping tool, and I already inked up my stamp using the Calico white ink from Pinkfresh Studio. And now I'm prepping the surface of my vellum using a powder tool so that I don't get any stray embossing powder sticking to areas of the vellum that I don't want it to stick to. So I'll press that onto my vellum, and I'm just using my stamp press tool from Pinkfresh Studio to get nice even pressure. And I decided I wanted an additional layer of ink. So again, I'm inking up that one-piece stamp and stamping it onto the vellum. I did not treat in between with the powder tool because that would smudge the ink that's already down. Now, once I have a nice solid stamped image onto the vellum, I'm taking this and adding some ultra fine detail white embossing powder over these florals. I'll knock off the excess, and once I have that done, I can go ahead and heat set this. Now, heat setting on vellum is something that you want to be a little more careful with. You kind of want to keep your heat tool moving, and oftentimes if I notice that either my vellum is starting to warp or it's melting too fast, I'll kind of move my heat tool around to prevent getting too much warping in one place. But you can see I have a beautiful heat embossed image, and now I'm taking the one-piece die and I'm going to die cut all three of these floral images at once. I really love the look of white heat embossed florals onto vellum. I think it's just such a beautiful look. And these really are going to be just the embellishments for my postage shapes that I created earlier. So I'm going to take each of these three floral pieces that I've created and position them onto the postage squares that I want them. And then I adhered them using little bits of foam adhesive. I just kind of hid it behind some of that heat embossing that's already there. And kind of over off to the side, I had some foiled greetings that I had created for a previous project. These are the Here For You greetings. I used the press plate set to create the foiled image, but you can also use the stamp set to stamp and then die cut the sentiment that you want. I picked the You're the Best sentiment here, and I'm just kind of arranging everything how I think I want it to lay out on the card. So I'm going to overlap all of these shapes, and once I get everything kind of where I think I want it, I'm going to take more of that mint tape and I am going to just adhere these together from the front side because I don't really want to move anything. So you can see I'm holding them in place with a finger and then adding the tape to kind of keep these shapes together. That's going to allow me to flip this entire grouping over and then add some foam adhesive from the back. And what I'll do with the foam adhesive is I'll allow it to overlap these shapes so that the foam adhesive is also holding these shapes in this design that I've already created. I like to do this when I have several smaller pieces that I'm working with, kind of create one single grouping out of them by adhering them together so it's easier to work with. Now I need to create my card base, and I'm going to make a 5x7 card. So I'm trimming my cardstock down to 10 inches by 7 inches. So you can see I have a full sheet of letter-sized Concord and Ninth white cardstock because it's my favorite white cardstock. And once I have that trimmed to 10 inches by 7 inches, I'm scoring this at 5 inches, and that will create my 5x7 card base. Now I have a piece of antique ivory cardstock here. You can see that in the center. I have trimmed that down to 4 inches by 6 inches, so it nestles nicely onto that card base. And now I am taking the backer off of the foam adhesive that I've placed over all these shapes, and I'm going to place this grouping onto that 4x6 piece of antique ivory cardstock. Once I get everything in place and I know that I'm good and secure, then I can remove the masking tape that was holding all of this together so I wouldn't have to kind of position these over and over again. To bring a little bit of shine to this card project, I decided to cut a piece of gold cardstock to use as a matte layer behind this. So this is trimmed to 4 1/8 by 6 1/8. It's just slightly bigger than this antique ivory cardstock. I'm going to place that on there using some tape runner adhesive. And then I can take this entire card front and adhere it to my card base using, again, some foam adhesive. Now, I know not everybody loves foam adhesive as much as I do, but I just love a card with a lot of dimension. So you can skip some of these layers of foam adhesive if you choose to. For a little embellishment, I grabbed the gold metallic pearls from Pinkfresh Studio. I'm placing them, just a few of them, around my sentiment onto the card using some liquid glue and my dual tip embellishment tool. And that finishes off my card for today, showing you how you can take your basic shape dies, use some partial die cutting, and create some custom size shapes. I absolutely love this postage kind of vibe that's going around recently, and I couldn't wait to show you additional ways to use these dies in your card making and crafting. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there, or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. Also, be sure to check out Instagram today. There is an Instagram hop celebrating this new Essentials release from Pinkfresh Studio happening. I'm actually not a part of that hop, but if you check Pinkfresh Studio's Instagram profile, you'll find all the details there. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here so you don't miss any of the card making and paper crafting video tutorials I share. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.